Because sometimes mending starts by naming what needs stitches. You have to start by naming things. You cannot heal what you cannot name. God cannot heal it if you can't name it. And so tonight we're going to name those things. And collectively in this space, we all long for mending and restoration, but division and greed and poverty and injustice and mental illness and wars and school shootings and broken relationships and all the other ugly things that we face continue to try to tell us that what is broken will always be broken. And the world likes to spin lies about a God who's dead, or maybe even worse, he's not dead. He's powerless and he's indifferent and he could give a rip. And the loud voices around us, they want believers to stop believing that restoration is possible, because if they can get the light to turn off and the hope to turn off and the faith to turn off, then they can actually get his people to stop doing restorative work in the world that desperately is longing for it. And our wounds, they have this way of whispering to us these cruel lies that say the pain you inherited will be passed down to your kids, and there's nothing you can do about it. And guilt and shame, they start to tell us and they convince us that they will always hold the pen and they will write our story to the very end. But I am here to tell you tonight, no, no, no. We have a God who is in the business, a God who is alive and well, a God who is moving, a God who's redeeming, and a God who is in the business of mending and restoration. And this ministry, Collide, is actually living proof of that. If you met me like 18 years ago, or I don't know the exact timeline. I should have done the math before here. I think in story, not in years. Think about my kids' ages. I got a knock on the door one day. I was a stay-at-home mom. And we had a lot of people that visited our house. It wasn't a big deal to get a knock on the door. I go to the door. And I saw that it was my mom. And she had just moved into my town to be super grandma. But I hadn't lived with my mom since I was 15 years old. And all I saw was all the neglect and the addiction and the abandonment and the pain, and I couldn't let her in, and I flipped out, and I took my baby, and I ran upstairs, and I went and I hid in a closet with Bella, because I didn't want to let my mom into my life and into my house. And so there I was, and I was shushing Bella, and I'm trying to keep her quiet so my mom won't know we're there. And the Lord met me in such a profound way, and he said, Willow, I've done so much healing in your life, but there's more healing to be done, and you need to step outside of this closet, and you need to say yes to healing, and you need to get help. And so I did. And I found myself in this Christian therapist's office, I don't know, a week or two later, and she says, what brings you in here today? And I'm kind of sassy, so I made some joke about how I'm playing weirdo hide and seek by myself with my kid. And she just immediately says, you need to tell your mom you can only spend 30 minutes a week with her. And the only way I can explain it is like the counselor came in the room, and I don't even know what the therapist said the rest of the time. But all of a sudden, all these words started coming out of my mouth, and I started weeping and crying for my own brokenness, for your brokenness, for the world's brokenness. And I said, no, like I was born into wounds. Like I collided with my father's wounds, and he didn't get healing for his wounds, so he wounded me. And I collided with my mother's wounds, and she didn't get healing, and she wounded me, and now I might hurt my baby. I need healing. I need help, and I actually want to get so whole that I can actually collide with my mother and bring her healing instead of more pain. And I walked out of that therapist's office and gave her $85, and she probably thought I was a psycho that was going to keep hiding with my baby. And the Lord said, I'm going to do something with this concept, Collide. And I wasn't looking to do something, right? Because I wasn't in a super great place. And the next week, a girl asked me to mentor her. And I said, look, like I'm not in the best place to mentor you. But if you want to look at the life of Jesus Christ in the New Testament and how he collides with wounded people and what he does when he collides with them, I'll do that with you. And so she brought a couple friends. I thought she was going to bring 4. She asked if she could bring someone. I said, yes, she brought 25. So I'm like getting out the stale Cheerios and like the old lemonade and just like, let's do this thing. And me and those 25 girls for years studied scriptures and saw Jesus Christ absolutely wreck people's lives in a good way and change them when he got a hold of their lives and bring mending and restoration. And we started experiencing healing and mending and restoration. And what happened is they invited a few friends who invited a few friends. And it turned into this whole huge ministry over the last decade where now God is using our stories of pain. And he's healing us, but then he's using us to bring restoration to other people's stories. Right? Like one day this woman, she walks into our office and she's got a jumpsuit on and a designer purse. And I'm like, anybody who can pull off a jumpsuit, like they have it together, man. And so I sit down, and I didn't know why she wanted to meet. And she starts to talk, and she says, I really resonate with your story of your family. And she said, you know, my parents were addicts. And I said, well, tell me about your family now. And she got out her phone. She showed me this picture of this beautiful tropical vacation and told me about her family now. And she said, well, what I haven't told you is that we haven't gone on a vacation in 10 years because I'm actually a meth addict. She looks fully functioning, and she's a meth addict with 2 kids. And she's married, and she said, you know, I came to my first Collide, and I wanted to be changed so much by Jesus, and so I left, and I got rid of all my drug paraphernalia, and I was doing good, and then COVID hit. And she was like, I went back to the stuff. And then I just recently came to another client, and I realized, like, I need help. She said, I went and got a tattoo of what you told us at the conference. She pulls up her sleeve. She has a tattoo all the way up her arm. And she said, I want to do whatever you tell me to do today. And I said, you should never say that to me. I will keep you busy for a very long time. No. That day, I got to hand her very first Bible. She joined a Bible study group. She signed up for a counseling program and got counseling. And the last time I saw her, she was sober. And you think about how that changed the trajectory of her children. Because we had a moment in that conversation where I said to her, if you don't decide today to get healing, do you know what is going to happen? I said, I can say something hard to you because you said you resonated with my pain, so I want to be very clear with you. If you don't get help today, you will hurt your children like your parents hurt you. And that was the moment where she said, all right, let's go.